I definitely did. I was like, I thought you were dead.
Yeah.
I literally asked him that in an interview. I was like, I thought you were dead.
Is anyone ever truly dead?
Hello, I'm Jacqueline Coley. Welcome to Scene on the Screen, brought to you by Make It Universal and Rotten Tomatoes, where we talk movies with some of the people behind the scenes at NBC Universal. When entertainment works best, sometimes it opens a window into a world we never imagined. Other times it shows us a mirror image of our lives with a heightened sense of home. In today's episode, you'll learn about working with a filmmaker who seamlessly combines the commercial with the soulful, the payoff of taking a big risk with an iconic character, and the childhood movie rentals that set the trajectory for a career in film. My guest today is Ryan Jones. Ryan, welcome to the Scene on the Screen podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so tell everyone who has not gotten a chance to talk to you like I have who you are and what do you do at NBC Universal?
Yeah, I'm Ryan Jones, Senior Vice President of Production at Universal Pictures.
What does that mean exactly? Because I know what that means, but not everybody listening does.
No one knows what that means, right? Basically, creative executive on all the movies that we make here at Universal Pictures, where you're overseeing everything from sort of inception of an idea to the post-production and release of a film.
So one thing that's interesting about that is you really start early on. Maybe it's an idea, maybe it's a script, maybe it's just a director that you kind of want to work with. Kind of talk to me a little bit about what are those first phone calls? What are those first conversations for you on the production side? Because you literally are on like you knew that we were doing Megan 2 before we announced it.
Yeah.
You knew that, we were going to be doing all of these things long before they become something that's public. So yeah, talk about those early conversations, like how they come to you.
Totally. Well, I think, we get lots of projects many different ways. One can be, would you ever do a movie about a killer dog? You're like, oh, that sounds interesting. Or no, that doesn't sound interesting to me. Or, oh, we're already in development on that. It can also be from filmmakers or producers that we work with, that we have worked with in the past, or ones that we want to work with, and the agents know that. So it can really be a variety of different ways. Also, it could be, IP, whether it is a book, that we all read and really loved, or, an old TV series that we think, can be a movie. So it's really a variety of different ways, whether it's sort of agents, managers, or the producers or filmmakers that we have relationships with.
So I love the idea that you were somebody that knew we were doing a second Megan, long before I got excited about it and found it out. What has been one of the projects that you've been sort of the happiest to be a part of? Because you're relatively, and I say this because as the podcast tells folks, there are lifers at NBC. If you don't have 15 years deep, it's how long have you really worked here? But for you coming over here from other places, what was something that you've gotten to work on in those years that you're really particularly proud of?
Yeah, well, it's funny that you mentioned Megan, because that was the very first movie that I worked on here. I started during the pandemic, so I'm just over 3 years here. And that was the very first one. And what an incredible first project to be a part of. And obviously what Blumhouse and Atomic Monster do is just really incredible. I think that, with that particular movie, the big idea of sort of doing something like the Terminator, but she presents as a young girl, is really
terrifying.
And obviously that movie just really took on a life of its own.
Yeah, we talked to Arnold Klein from the digital side, and he talked a little bit about the promotion of that one. And yeah, that is a special film. Do the people in your life, do they get what you do? I find it is often hard to explain to people when you have jobs like yours, because it's if you're in film production, you obviously know what you do and you could intimately describe it. But for outside folks, it's a little bit harder, maybe.
Yeah, so I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and a lot of my family still resides there.
Oh.
And I still find myself having to explain to my family what I do when I go home for the holidays. They're like, wait, explain again. I didn't see your name in the credits. I'm like, no. You won't see my name in the credits.
Yeah.
When you see the logo of the film studio, that is my contribution to the movie. But it is something that I think is hard to explain. So I think the simplest way I always say, it's just we make movies. We work with the filmmakers to make movies. And then I think once I say that, they get it.
Yeah.
But they still want to know, have you met Denzel Washington yet? The answer sadly is no.
Is this that is
It's
shocking?
Sadly no. Sadly
That
no.
is shocking.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I hope that happens for you. I hope you guys get to make. I mean, let's get in the Denzel business. Let me just get everyone
Manifest.
let me just get like Peter Kramer, who is your boss,
Yes.
who's the head of production at NBC.
Yeah.
Let's just get him in much trouble right now by saying, "Yeah, let's do a movie with Denzel," and like have that be a thing that people think is happening. No, but it's really great, and I love that you've been a part of this. Is it something you always wanted to do, or is this like something that you came through later?
I knew that I always wanted to be in this business in some capacity. I'd be lying to you if I told you, oh yes, I always knew I was going to be a studio executive. I think again, going back to growing up in St. Louis, and not really having any relationships in this business, I think you kind of underestimate how hard it can be to break in.
Yeah.
But also sort of really what the different opportunities are within this business creatively. And so, the initial thinking was like, oh yeah, just, the thing to be as a filmmaker or an actor. And then once you get here, like, oh, there's a job where I get to work with cool filmmakers that I admire and make incredible movies that can help shape culture and change culture.
Yeah.
Absolutely, sign me up.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, I think we're going to go ahead and dive into our first segment where we kind of talk about some of those films that you've seen on the screen that, to your point, shaped culture and made you to film fan to now film executive.
Great.
So we're going to dive into our popcorn buckets here, and all of the movies in here, these are quotes where we're going to, hopefully it's something that jogs your memory, something that you've seen on the screen, and you will be able to tell us like why it's important to you. Okay. Don't be scared.
Okay. All right.
I feel the
it's
fear.
It's kind of scary. No. It's a little bit of a horror setup. But
no, you're going to do fine. Now, when I have to do this later, that's when you should be scared. Okay. But right now, it's great for you.
All right, fair enough.
All right, here we go. Harper Stewart, Richard Wrong, Langston Snooze. What's this from?
Best Man.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is such, we talk about the culture. This is one of those movies where I really feel it's like it was commercial, it was enjoyable, it was romantic, and it was funny, but it was so within the culture. Like you really remember when you first saw that one, right?
100%, and I think it's such an aspirational movie. And I just think Malcolm Lee did such a beautiful job in that to sort of show like how complex friendships can be. There still aren't as many movies about friendship, especially from the African-American perspective. And I think I just remember when I saw that movie, just sort of like, oh, wow, like, look at all of these successful, beautiful Black people just doing the damn thing. But also their lives are so messy.
Yes, just like everyone else.
Yeah,
and that's
like
not the most
else.
Interesting part about them. There's not a lot of struggle. It's literally aspirational to your point, and everyone in there is doing their own thing, but they're so damaged.
Yeah.
They're so messy.
So damaged. And like a few like, will they, won't they? Like, you're rooting for like Tatum. You're like, wait, no, but he's still got Sanaa. Like, no, don't do it. But that movie is very special.
And that cast as well. I have a question. Do you have a similar sort of like friend group, and do they understand what you do? Because I could see it's like if you had that sort of friend group where it's like you're all kind of doing your own thing. Yours is the job where everyone was like, he does movie stuff.
Yeah. By the way, exactly right. I think certainly within Hollywood, like my friends obviously understand what I do, but friends outside of it, they're still like, he does something with movies, not quite entirely sure of it.
Like he's in LA.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think that, sort of, growing up in St. Louis, like when you see that movie, especially the age that I saw it at, you're like, oh wow, like this is what life will be like when you get older.
Yeah. Oh God. Hopefully in some ways not, but truthfully.
Yeah, exactly. The good parts of that movie.
The good parts of it. Speaking of which though, have you gotten to take any of those people in your life, those what I would call the movie civilians, and sort of given them that taste of Hollywood? Because as a film executive, you're getting to do like a lot of cool stuff. You're getting to go to like the Jurassic Park premiere that we do where we've got like a real dinosaur at the premiere, like biting people. We're doing the big glitzy Oppenheimer, Oscar tastemaker and all that kind of stuff. Have you gotten to take those folks in your life and peek inside? What'd you do? Yeah,
I'll say one thing that I remember is at my previous job, we were based on the Paramount lot. And it just so happened that my family was in town shortly after starting and basically giving them a lot tour.
Oh, that's nice.
And being able to like point to all the history on that lot was a pretty awesome feeling, like driving around in a golf cart and being like, this is the place that made The Godfather. Like one of the greatest movies of all time.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that was a really special experience.
That's definitely one, especially parents of that generation. They may not know Megan, like, let's be real. They may not, they should, but they may not know. They know The Godfather. They absolutely know The Godfather. And if it was the Universal lot, like, they know Psycho, they know Back to the Future, they know Amblin.
Yes, I remember when I first arrived on the lot, seeing the town square where Back to the Future was shot. You're like, oh my gosh, it's right there.
It's right there.
So cool.
So incredible. Okay, we're going to dive back into the popcorn bucket. Whoever said violence wasn't the answer wasn't very violent. Oh, this is a perfect timed one too. Do you remember?
Wade Wilson?
Yes,
Deadpool.
in Deadpool 2000. You're giving the actor and the quote. That is production, ladies and gentlemen. They're like, no, we will be specific. There's money involved. No, I'm just kidding. No, I love Deadpool. This is another one of those ones too where it's like, it's especially this year, it feels like this is just a part of like movies right now, like where we need a little Deadpool to come in and be a little vulgar, a little out there. What's sort of your connection to this one? Yeah, so Deadpool was one of the movies I was fortunate enough to work on as an executive at 20th Century Fox. And that movie was just such a special one because it was literally lightning in a bottle, where, it was sort of doing all of these things that were sort of breaking convention, the things that you didn't know if you could pull off in a superhero movie. We're going to break the fourth wall. This is a character who's known for his foul mouth. He's going to say some bad words. He's going to poke fun of some things that maybe he shouldn't. And will this work, like showing blood in Marvel movies? And it worked phenomenally well. So much so that they're still making those movies today. And a risk at that time because that was R-rated. And... it was R-rated, and also was at a time when the Marvel movies were all PG-13 and sort of had a certain narrative structure that we were looking to sort of shuffle up a little bit. I'm glad that we got to discuss Deadpool because I think at your time there, that wasn't just the only sort of like seminal MCU iteration that you did, because you also worked on Logan, which that was another film that like really changed the game for superhero movies. Yeah, Logan was also a bit of a risk because, spoiler alert, he dies. He does die, and that was a really big conversation to have. And Hugh Jackman obviously embodies that character so beautifully, and giving that character the proper send-off that he deserves, which was so important to all of us at the studio. But as a lifelong X-Men fan, was also just important to me personally, wanting to do justice to that character. Yeah, you really did. And then this year they threw all that out the window because he's back. And going to be fabulous, I might add. But I definitely did. I was like, I thought you were dead. I literally asked him that in an interview. I was like, I thought you were dead. Is anyone ever truly dead in the comic book world? Facts. That's actually the unsort of charted part of comic books. It's like in actual comic books, nobody really does die. They all come back. They do all come back. So to your point, actually, you know what? That makes it a perfect comic book adaptation. You've already mentioned, that, you worked on the Paramount lot. You've worked for 20th Century Studios. You are only been at Universal for less than, 4 years, basically, or about 4 years. How did that sort of journey happen from St. Louis to eventually coming to the best studio in town? Yes, I agree. So my path was a little interesting, I'll say. Imagine, and I give all the credit to my family for being supportive, because I graduated from the University of Miami, and I decided to move to LA to pursue a career in this business, which we know could be tumultuous. And I moved out to LA without a job at all. Wow. And it was just sort of a dream of mine that I had. And the very first job that I had in this business was working in talent management. And that experience taught me a lot about how the way the business operates, the way that it works. And from there, I went to go work at State Street Pictures with Bob Title and George Tillman, whose movies, everything from sort of Soul Food to Men of Honor to Barbershop, and most recently One Love with Bob Marley.
working for those guys, I really kind of learned the development aspect of this business, how to be a producer, how to develop material. And after working with those guys and working at Morgan Creek, where I got to learn a little bit about international financing. And then from there, I went to work at 20th Century Fox.
Wow.
And that was obviously a great experience, as we touched upon already, to get to work on just a variety of different movies, from Maze Runner, Deadpool, Logan, etc. And from there, went to work at Hasbro. And if the X-Men was one of my childhood loves, the other would probably be the Transformers.
Yeah.
And working on movies that star Optimus Prime and Bumblebee, which was just kind of insane to me.
Yeah, because you did the Travis Scott Bumblebee, right?
Yeah. Travis Knight.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So Travis Scott is the musician.
Yeah.
Travis Knight, the director of Bumblebee.
Yeah. No, Bumblebee, too, I think, kind of speaking to Deadpool and speaking to Logan and also Bumblebee, those movies were all risky in their own way. I think up till that point, there hadn't been a female-led Transformers movie.
Yeah, that's right.
And so doing that with Haley Steinfeld, who portrayed that role excellently.
Yeah.
And doing something that felt a little bit smaller for those films where literally it's world-ending stakes, but doing something that felt a little bit more Amblin-y. That was a big risk for us.
Yeah, and it's funny, like that film was very successful. Was John Cena the bad guy in that one?
He was.
Yes,
he
right.
was.
Mr. John Cena.
He was fantastic.
He was fantastic. But like, again, looking at just that, Haley, John, all of those, you kind of made a career of being like different, even though you've had this sort of like what I would consider, it used to be a very traditional path. I wonder what you would say to folks now, because it's not that path that you took is not available. It's just way more narrow. What would you say to folks that were trying to get in your seat now about where they should go for that pathway? Because it's different, right?
The business is ever changing, ever evolving. I do think, there's a lot of headwinds facing us right now. I think there's always going to be headwinds facing this industry in some way. What I would say is, out of change comes innovation. And I think that that's something for everyone who wants to be in this business. It's something that I believe in myself, where I'm at in my career currently. But I do think that, the advice that I give to people when they ask me is sort of be persistent. I think that there's an expectation that things are meant to happen overnight, and they don't always. And if this is something that you want to be a part of, like, stick with it. And just make sure that you are committed to sticking it out, because it's not always easy.
Committed is a good word to say. You could be committed and you're like, yes, keep going. No, I'm kidding.
Not in that way.
Not in that way. I know. So, and I'm guessing from Hasbro, that's when you made the transfer over to Universal. I'm guessing our president of Universal Pictures, Peter Kramer, gave you a call.
Yes. Peter's my boss.
Okay.
It was during the pandemic. And obviously Universal is a place that I had long admired. The types of films that they make was just some of my favorite films. We talked about a few, I believe, already. Back to the Future, Jurassic Park. It's the home to Steven Spielberg, for crying out loud.
Seriously.
And I was like, oh my gosh, if there's an opportunity to work at the studio, then definitely I'd want to. And just sort of being a champion, I think, of filmmakers, it's like a shared philosophy. And obviously, Donna Langley embodies that in terms of types of movies that she has made here and that the studio is known for.
Obviously, for folks that don't know, Donna Langley is the chairman of the NBCU Studio Group and chief content officer. She has a new brand spanking title, which basically means she's like Queen Universal of all things that you see in storytelling on the screen, which is incredible that you get to work with her and Peter.
Yeah, I mean, they're both fantastic. And obviously the leadership and the stability of the studio, I mean, it speaks for itself. It
really does. Over 100 years. You did amazing. I don't know why you were concerned. That wraps us up for the quiz for quotes, but we are not done. Okay. So I'm going to pick up this popcorn bucket. And this is actually easier. This one's like even easier because I think it is. Because you only have two options, true or false. There's no trick question.
50% chance of getting it right.
I'm going to give you a fact or something about one of the films that you've seen on the screen. And then you just have to say true or false.
Okay.
Cameron Crowe based The Mother and Almost Famous, played by Frances McDormand, on his own mother. True or false?
True.
Yeah. So it's based on Cameron Crowe's life, and Frances McDormand's character is based on Crowe's own mother. And before production began, he actually gave his mom the script. She was fine with it because she said the mom was not shrill or not too shrill. But the barefoot is the thing that she sort of took umbrage to because he kind of made his mom kind of a barefoot hippie, which he would know, right?
Yeah, you would think.
I mean, you would think.
He did make his mom a hippie, but also his mom is played by Frances McDormand. You know, that's a win in my book.
It is a win.
It's almost...
She was already Oscar-winning Frances McDormand at that time. Became Oscar-nominated with this one.
Yeah, I mean, that movie is one of my favorite movies of all time. I think, you know, film obviously is a passion of mine, but another passion of mine is music. Sort of combining those two worlds, I loved it. Yeah. And I think just sort of the wish fulfillment of being able to go on tour with whoever your favorite band might be was just an amazing idea.
Yeah. I will also add to the soundtrack for it is just full of bops, including the fake song that they made for Fever Dog.
I mean, who could forget Tiny Dancer?
It's funny that you mentioned Tiny Dancer too, because that is one of like, I think just the great needle drops in music.
Absolutely.
And like one of those like clips that you like play over and over again,
yes,
right?
Yeah. I mean, if you need a pick-me-up, you could just watch that scene and feel euphoric. Yeah. But it is one of those movies that's just, you just feel good about life, you know, after you see it.
And that scene that it's setting up to kind of, for folks that don't remember, it's a bad moment within the group. Everyone's feeling kind of down. And then when the song plays, by the end of it, they're all singing along. Sort of the way that both film and music can kind of do that.
Absolutely. The ultimate mood booster.
I like it. Dopamine on drip. All right, here we go. Alfred Hitchcock broke the historic Hays rule, which required an on-screen kiss to be no longer than 3 seconds, when he made his 1946 film Notorious.
I believe this is true.
So he didn't technically break the rule, but he found a creative way around it. Because he wanted an extended kissing scene, he basically had them kiss, pause, kiss again, pause. And so he like kind of went back and forth. And so technically that's like longer than 3 seconds total, but he broke it up. The master of suspense, ladies and gentlemen.
Truly. You know, Hitchcock is one of my favorite filmmakers of all time.
Talk a little bit about your sort of personal relationship with Hitchcock, because like you mentioned earlier with The Godfather, I do feel it's also one of those filmmakers where it's like, okay, maybe you weren't supposed to be watching it when you were watching it, but like you watched it, right?
Yes, sneak watch.
Yeah.
Sneak watch. One of my, you know, backing up before I even moved to LA, you just saw my love for film. It really kind of happened because I would go to the grocery store with my parents, and one of the grocery stores that we would go to had a movie rental section. Yep. And so I would always sneak off to see what movies were available to rent. Kids today will never know.
They will never
know. Sometimes the movie you wanted to see just was not there. It was horrifying. And Hitchcock is sort of one of the filmmakers that I remember seeing like, wait, there's killer birds?
Yeah.
What? And that just started my trajectory into being a lover of cinema.
Yeah. It's so interesting now to think about it. Like you can definitely, it's like there's a line of demarcation. Did you ever walk the aisles of a video rental store to pick up a movie? It's like you're aging yourself now, which is sad to say.
It's all online.
Was it just you, or was this a family affair? Like,
yeah. So I have 2 sisters. We would share whose turn it was to pick the movie, but it expanded, you know, your knowledge of certain films that you necessarily didn't think they were for you, but ultimately you're like, oh, I got something out of that too. Yeah,
you didn't like, maybe it wasn't a movie that you felt like watching the trailers before you, but if you sat down with it, you could really find something great about it.
Absolutely. And I think it speaks to just the power of cinema, right?
Good storytelling,
Exactly. And bringing people together.
Do you have one of those films you could share with us that sort of like embodied that, where you didn't know going in?
Yeah, I think Pretty Woman is an example of that.
Yeah.
Where my older sister was like, I want to see this movie. And I was like, oh, I was young at the time. Romance, yuck. But obviously that movie is a classic and an incredible film.
When he goes to rescue Viv, you were there. Yeah. I know you were crying. I know you were crying because that's what you do with that movie. You did amazing, as I said that you would. You had nothing to worry about. And this is the best part. Now it's my turn to be tortured. And this is definitely the segment where they like to do it. So I'm going to hand you this right here. We're going to dive into the world of Universal Pictures. And this is my turn now. So you get to be sort of the quiz master.
Okay.
These ones though are multiple choice. You're going
Okay.
to give me a quote from a movie. And this quote, hopefully, if the people that plan the quotes don't want to torture me, will be something I remember. But I'm going to tell you this right now. They love it when I don't know. They love it. They enjoy it so much.
So long, Earth. Catch you on the flip side. Is it A, Kajillionaire, B, 999, C, Apollo 13?
I think that's Kajillionaire? No, 999.
No.
Is it Apollo
13?
I do not remember that. I only remember when stuff goes wrong in that movie. I'm not going to lie to you. And this is the second time I've missed Apollo 13, I think, on this very podcast. It's been
okay.
a while.
It's the first one.
Ronnie, I'm sorry. I need to revisit your movie. We've now
Classic.
established I need to revisit Apollo 13. You couldn't have given me Houston, we have a problem?
Okay. Hey, Scott, tell me something. Does PG&E pay you to cover their ass?
Yeah.
Or do you just do it out of the kindness of your heart? A, Dark Waters. B, Aaron Brockovich. C, being John Malkovich.
What's really funny is Dark Waters and Aaron Brockovich are both about poisoning people, but that is Aaron Brockovich.
Ding, ding, ding. You're right.
DuPont was Dark Waters. See,
Ah.
I have stuff, just not Apollo 13. I
Now
like
you're just
that one.
flexing.
Good job. Good job.
All right. The quote. You are different from the rest. Your heart is pure. Rejoice. The broken are the more evolved. Rejoice. Is it A, Split, B, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, C, The Hunt?
I think that's Split, and I think that is James McAvoy saying in that, being absolutely unhinged. Who's starring in another movie this year for us?
I know.
Is that yours too?
No, it's not.
Okay.
But it looks awesome.
I'm ready for that one. All right, here we go.
I only gamble with my life, never my money. Is it A, Trainwreck, B, Las Vegas, C, The Mummy?
I think that's The Mummy, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It
I
is.
never gamble with my life, only my mummy. See, that one I've watched multiple times. In fact, just rewatched it for the 25-year re-release in theaters, kids. Remember that one? I got it.
Amazing. Yeah, you got
That
it.
is the best I've ever
You
done.
got more right than wrong.
They're feeling sorry for me these days. Although maybe I don't think they expected me to get The Mummy, but I got that one. Ha ha. Y'all can't get me. No, Ryan, you can go ahead and close up the world of Universal Pictures. I'm proud of myself for not being embarrassing. Save Apollo 13. Thank you for joining us today. It was really great to talk to you about your incredible career as well as all of the incredible stuff that you've seen on the screen.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.